Welcome everyone to episode 14 of Kokoon. And on this episode, we're so lucky to have Melanie Eager, who is a Wellbeing and Peak Performance Specialist from Eager for Life. So welcome, Melanie. Thanks so much for being our guest on Kokoon.
Thanks, Karen. So great to be here.
Now, I always like to start at the beginning. So how did you start your career in this health and wellness space?
Oh, goodness. It started probably 2012, and I was working corporate, doing long hours, lots of travel in state, and I suffered from burnout. So I suffered from burnout not once but twice in the corporate world. And 2012, I was diagnosed with adrenal fatigue, chronic fatigue, and fibromyalgia. And really, doctors didn't know what to do because my bloods were all normal. So I was going to the doctor and I was like, something's wrong. I'm absolutely exhausted. And they were like, well, there's nothing wrong with you because your bloods are normal. So I went on my own healing journey, got diagnosed with fibromyalgia through a rheumatologist. And doctors didn't know what to do. Naturopaths didn't know what to do at the time. And so I just went on and figured it out for myself. And I learned so much in that time. I was like, I have to share this with other people. And so I went on at the time to study food and nutrition coaching. And I was like, this is my thing. This is what I want to be doing. Like, I don't want to be in the corporate world absolutely exhausted when I have all this knowledge and skills to share with people. But I stayed in the corporate world for another 3 years. I was coaching people like in the evenings, on the weekends, same when I was studying, like I did it all on the side. And then it took me till 2015 when I burnt out again. And my husband was like, enough, like we can't carry on this where you are just exhausted on the weekends. You are just on the sofa recovering from your travel, recovering from your working hours during the week. And he said to me, quit your job. I was like, I can't. You can't have a 6-figure job like that. And he said, well, you can't carry on being this exhausted. And within a week, we had both resigned from our jobs. Wow. We had started packing up the house. And then within a couple of weeks, we had packed up the house, the car, put our 2 dogs in the car, travelled across the Nullarbor to Queensland, or to the eastern states. We didn't know we were going to end up in Queensland. We wanted to, but we didn't know how it was going to work out. And we just said, let's just do this. And I just started coaching, just started sharing my knowledge with people from that point onwards as soon as we landed on the East Coast. And I've never looked back.
Wow, that's such an inspirational story. I think people often dream of just packing in and giving notice, but you actually did it. So I admire you so much.
And so many people worried about us. Like, what are you going to do? How's it going to work out? Well, like, it'll work out.
Yeah. And it did. Probably even better than you could have even imagined.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so now that you've gone through the lesson twice, so what do you do now to actually maintain your energy levels? Because you have a very active and busy life with your clients. And even I see you on LinkedIn and on Instagram climbing mountains and all sorts of things. So what do you do to be able to maintain that kind of energy?
So that's my secret. It's almost like a catch-22. So to maintain my energy, I exert energy. So my body type loves to get up early in the morning. So I found my sweet spot. My sweet spot is 7 hours sleep. So if I actually have more than 8 hours, I find that I'm worse. If I decide to sleep in, I really listen to my body. So I know when to slow down. And with everything I've been through, I know when to slow down, when to have slower mornings. But if I am lazy, I'm like, I'll just sleep in this morning, I actually regret it. I actually have less energy. I'm more sluggish during the day. So I get up early. I probably get up about 4:30 most mornings, and then I'm working out 5:30. I started CrossFit 12 weeks ago.
Oh, great.
Absolutely love it. I wish I'd found
Whereabouts are you going? Where are you doing your CrossFit?
Up in Gympie. Yeah, it's a
Oh,
CrossFit
yeah.
Virtuous up in Gympie. Such a supportive club. I've never done anything like this before, and they've been so nurturing and so amazing.
Which you broke up when you said the name of the place, CrossFit.
Oh, CrossFit Virtuous in Gympie.
Virtuous. I know someone. I know another CrossFit box up there. So I was just wondering.
Ah, yeah.
CrossFit is amazing. What I found with it is you have to be so consistent. Like I used to be right into it as well, and then I just couldn't go. And then every time I went, oh my goodness, I'd be so sore because I couldn't. You've got to like keep doing it to keep doing it. So
you do. The secret is consistency. Absolutely. Yeah. So for me, like going to bed early so I can get up early, having those 7-hour sleep, and moving my body. Yeah. So sometimes it'll be like 3 times a week it'll be CrossFit, other times it'll be climbing a mountain or just a slower morning, seeing a sunrise at the beach.
Yep. And so do you ever have any, I mean, clearly in your corporate job you had these times constantly, but in your current working life, do you ever have any really intensely busy periods? And if so, do you do anything to try and sort of soothe yourself and recover after really busy times? Anything different than what you normally do?
Yeah. So what I found is the big difference is the corporate world is like go, go, go constantly. There never seems to be those down times. Whereas now I'm able to balance myself a lot better. So, I'm what I call a multi-potentialite. So I have various different businesses and, kind of like parts of my business as well. And at the moment with one of my businesses, I'm doing a 90-day sprint. So we work really, solidly for 12 weeks.
Yeah.
And then pull back a little bit as well. There's a great book called The 12-Week Year. And that talks about that working in 12-week bursts and then having a little bit of kind of downtime and then going again, because you can't go consistently like that. That's how people are burning out, because they're expected to go, go, go all the time.
Yeah. And so now, like reflecting back on your career in this space, what do you wish you knew then that you've learned over time? What advice would you give yourself if you could go back in time to the beginning?
Oh, I tell you, everyone is replaceable, and to put yourself first. I'm really huge on that, and putting yourself first, because if I don't put myself first, I can't help anybody else. I can't help my clients. I can't help my husband, family, etc. So when you put yourself first, and for the mums out there and the dads out there that are saying, it's tricky to do that, just 5 minutes, again, that 5 minutes earlier, and just having that bit of silence before anybody else wakes up, and doing more of what you love and less of what you don't love. So if you can contract out the work, or find somebody to do the bits of work that you don't like, because that's a drain on you. You really thrive when you find passion and you work in that area, that zone of genius. But if you're trying to work in an area where, say for example, you're not very creative, you've got much more of an analytical science brain and you try and do all this creative stuff, can you outsource it to somebody else to do? Because then you'll find in your day-to-day work, when you're with your clients, you'll be thriving.
Yeah, that's great advice. And so, as I said, I see you on social media quite regularly, and I often get asked as well of how, because I'm very much into yoga and that side of things, like how can I do that and then be on social media so much? So how do you navigate that? So you're in the health and wellness field, but you're also on social media, and it can be a trap, like it can be quite addictive. So how do you bring about that balance? What tips can you share on that?
Yeah, absolutely. It can be addictive, and I think we can get into that scroll hole. So I'm a real planner. Like my days are really scheduled out in kind of like a time frame of what I'm doing when, and my phone shuts down at 8:30. So in the evening, so all the apps shut down. It's easy to override it. So you can just press a button and override it, but it's very rare that I will override it. So have to remember, like, if I'm watching a video or something like that, it'll literally just shut down at 8:30 p.m. And I start to wind down after dinner. So I might come back in the office and do a few bits, but it's very rare that you'll catch me replying to a lot of messages in the evening. And because I go to bed early and I get up early, that means there's potentially a lot of messages there the next morning. But I don't start getting into the messages and replying to people until I'm ready and until I've done what I want to do. I've also found as well that if you don't reply instantly to people, often they'll go and they'll find the answer themselves.
Yeah.
I think we've got really lazy. We're just like, oh, can you tell me so-and-so? And we fire out these messages and we don't bother to go and look for the information ourselves. Like, can you send me the link to the room? Whereas I've pulled back from replying to people straight away. And then when I do jump in the messages and I'm ready to sit down and reply to people, sometimes things have already been resolved.
That is so true. And you notice that when you go on holiday and you come back and you look at the messages and the conversations and you're like, you can delete half of them because they've already went back. So I forget who it was. I think I read something where there was someone who said that's their whole approach to emails and messages. They said they don't do anything unless the person emails them again. And then if they do, they go, well, it must be important.
Yeah, so, interesting.
Yeah, I'm not sure how well that would go in a business, but
no, I don't know how that would work. But you have to be really careful of getting sucked into that social media scroll. So I have dedicated times where I go online, post my content, like look what's going on, and then come back and prioritize my work again.
That's so disciplined. I like how it's almost like you sort of set up to go, okay, lights out, that's it. And so on your phone, how do you do that? Is there an app or is it something you can do in the settings?
It's something you can do in settings. Like I have an iPhone and you can just you can put like
when you put it into like a different mode and then it sort of shuts it off.
And you can also put limits on your app. So my Facebook has got a limit and it'll say, you've only got 30 minutes left of Facebook, for example.
Yeah. Go and actually live your life.
Yeah, exactly. Get out there.
I think I need that for TikTok. I watch that way too much. But
TikTok's good though because the videos are short, so you get a short little burst of information. I do like it from that perspective. Yeah.
And so, with of course keeping anonymity of your clients, can you share a story of just a really positive transformation that you have guided one of your clients through?
Yeah, sure. Like my business has evolved so much over the years. So I've often found like it's the really simple things that make the biggest difference. So when I was doing a lot of health coaching for some of my clients who have got an endomorph body shape, for them actually sleeping in, so they wouldn't thrive on getting up for sunrise. It's actually detrimental for them. So them sleeping in and working out later, they actually lose weight. So that's one example of just a small change. But some of the biggest changes I've seen in people is the work I do now in breathing education. And people come to me like on CPAP machines, so they're wearing a mask at night with a noisy machine that they're wired up to. But people come to me with like ridiculously high blood pressure where the doctors have said, we actually don't know what to do for you. Like, go and try anything else because we don't know what to do. And just teaching them how to breathe properly makes such a massive difference. Like, I will never recommend people come off their CPAP machine or come off their medication. That's not my place. And I'll always refer people back to their physicians. But I've seen such remarkable changes in people. And people coming back saying, I had no idea I was supposed to breathe through my nose. And just a simple thing, like I can carry my shopping bag so much more easily. And I'm just not puffed out and exhausted on a day-to-day basis because I'm literally closing my mouth more. It's so simple yet so effective.
Yeah, that's true. The breath, I mean, being, from yoga like you just see that even in people's sort of anxiety levels when they, you know, from the start of the class to the end of the class. Like it's so, you're right, it's so simple, but people, it's not something that we do naturally. Something
No. Well, 75% of people with anxiety have dysfunctional breathing. So you correct the breathing, and then you're really supporting the person with their anxiety.
Absolutely. And so we're heading towards 2024. Can you believe it? So even though we're still in September, it is still October, but how are you a goal setter? Some people are, some people prefer to go with the flow and their own intuition, but did you set goals for this year, and how are you faring in achieving those goals, and are you looking towards goals for 2024?
Yeah, so I'm definitely a goal setter. And my goals are always much more awareness about health. So the end of last year, I presented on peak performance and breathing at Woodford Folk Festival. And I went into 2023 with really wanting to bring awareness to people about breathing. And then a couple of weeks into this year in January, I literally had this couple come up to me in the street, and they turned around and they said, "Are you the breathing lady? Like, we heard you good." And that was just amazing. And to me, setting goals to help more people like that is really, really powerful. And that's what's important to me, is that ripple effect of getting that message out there. The number of friends that message me and they're like, "I went cycling today and I kept my mouth closed and I breathed through my nose throughout my whole cycle." Like, so, you know, they're not SMART goals. Like, it's not specific, measurable, and there's no numbers in terms of how many people kind of I wanted to reach when I gave my presentation at Woodford, but there was a great turnout, and it's the ripple effect. It's people saying, "Hey, I saw this person at Woodford," and you know, every aspect of my business, because I do various different modalities, as it were. So I use a technique called Havening technique, which is a psychosensory technique using touch. So you're teaching people to rub their hands together, to rub their shoulders, and to rub their face. And that actually can support people with trauma. It changes the way trauma is encoded in the brain. So it's not very well known in Australia. It's very big in the US, big in the UK, and it's getting quite big in New Zealand. We have a medical doctor there who's resigned from medicine to now do this because he can spend more time with his patients. So another area of my goals for 2023 was to bring more awareness to that and ensure that people are starting to hear about it in Australia as well.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing. So it's really just making sure you're getting out there. That's a really admirable goal to have.
Very much.
And so we're going to sort of end where we began. So what advice would you give to someone starting at their career in this sort of health and wellness space to avoid burnout? Because I mean, you've experienced it twice, and I think it's I think it's quite common, and I think people just try and push through, and it's not a good idea at all. So what would you tell them just starting out? Because I mean, also too, when you go into this sort of field, you want to help everybody. So what sort of tips and tricks would you tell them?
Give to someone that's starting out in this field? Oh, I would say follow your intuition. Like, for me, burning out twice, I knew 3 years prior that I was heading in that direction. And I always say your body gives you warning signs, and it will keep giving you those signs until you're forced to stop. So there's that little voice that's going on, and it's giving you these little signals, but you're not listening. And I would say to people, like, tune into your body, listen to that intuition. And I started my business, health coaching, and really focusing on helping vegans to become healthier vegans and get more healthy plant-based food into their diet, to now where I'm doing nervous system regulation and supporting people with peak performance with their breathing. And I'd say don't be afraid to evolve as you evolve. You know, you're going to continuously change, and you don't have to stick to one area. Don't give yourself a label. I think we put ourselves in a box, and I call myself a multi-potentialite, you know, because I'm doing Haven, and I'm doing my breathing education. I've got a passion for getting people to drink healthier water, so I sell water ionizers. I support people with cold water immersion. So that's great for all the health benefits and supporting their nervous system. And I think don't put yourself in a box and give yourself a label and feel that you're really restricted. Don't do too much, but just explore what is going to work for you. But going back to always putting yourself first as well, because if you don't put yourself first, you can't help your clients.
Absolutely. Amazing advice. And so thank you so much. So we're coming to the end of this episode. Do you have any final words to share before we wrap up?
Oh, I think we've covered a lot today, but honestly, don't be scared to step outside your comfort zone and try different things. Like, I love now sharing my knowledge and presenting and being able to support people in all those different fields. But I used to hate presenting. Like, you know, years ago, I cancelled job interviews because they asked me to do presentations, and it was something that absolutely petrified me. So step outside your comfort zone, give it a go, get out there and meet people in different areas and different niches and form those connections, because that's what it's all about, is meeting different people and supporting different people as well.
Yeah, amazing advice. Thank you so much. And before we wrap up, I also want to give a shout out to Whispering Valley Cottage Retreats, who are looking after me this week as I lock myself away to work on my book. So thank you. And thank you, Melanie, for an excellent episode. And we'll see you next month. Thanks for watching, everyone.
Thanks, Karen. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.